Everyone, even the queens, is invited back. The truth is that there are moments when remaining silent says it all. Leaving a message unread isn't what happens when you quit messaging him. You're abandoning him to face an unpleasant truth on his own, something he has been trying to escape. And in that stillness, he starts to contemplate. But his thoughts? Well, isn't that the question? The solution is both more straightforward and more sinister than you may think. He can sense the empty space when you remain silent. Imagine yourself in a room where suddenly the hum of a machine comes to a halt. I find it unnerving at first. In that case, it's quite irritating. You are powerful and you're quiet. This was the unexpected turn of events. Every time you texted him and waited for a response, you gave him a boost to his ego. You were able to establish consistency and make yourself available. But it's like turning the chessboard upside down when the texts stop. After believing he had everything under control, he finds himself left to fumble around in confusion as he tries to decipher the regulations. Nothing here is about trivial matters. To put it simply, it's about taking back control of your life. Consider the Stoic emperor Marcus Aurelius, who had complete control over his feelings as well as Rome. It is your thoughts, not external factors, that control you. You will discover strength once you realize this. Your decision to cease messaging him exemplifies that wisdom. Your decision to remain silent is clear. You're standing firm in your refusal to allow another person to control your emotions. It's more than just power. I call that freedom. But we should investigate his thoughts more thoroughly. According to dark psychology, control is a human need. Someone thinks they owe you when they can anticipate your every move. Your emotions, caring, willingness to offer, and tolerance for him were laid out for him in every text message you sent. You destroy that map by coming to a halt. He is now lost and confused, doubting his previous assumptions about you. Just picture this. You're a beacon of hope. Your skill in navigating his ship to safety has been invaluable for weeks, if not months now. Your light has been there for him, although he may not have always recognized it. Yet the illumination has already faded. Rough waves are rolling in. It is a chilly night. Suddenly, he understands how light he had taken that light. That's the impression he gets from your lack of speech. It's more than simply not having a text. It's like being unloved and unappreciated all at once. And you won't be misled. He'll probably try to explain away your lack of response. For a while, he'll assume you're simply being tricky. After that, he may begin to question whether you're interested in someone else or if you've moved on. The fissures start to appear at this point. Uncertainty is a problem for the human mind, as dark psychology reminds us. To pinpoint when you changed, he will review past talks and texts. The irony is harsh. Even after he had your words in his possession, he didn't cherish them. However, their absence has rendered them completely inaccessible to his thoughts. The impassive hand is required here. The Stoic virtue of emotional resilience, known as apatheia, is exhibited when one refrains from texting. Disregarding him is not motivated by animosity. You're getting away from all that mayhem. Just to refresh your memory, your peace isn't a negotiating chip. Stop wasting time debating the qualities that make a decent man. Join the group. Just change the man to a lady and follow that quote. Keeping quiet is not an act of punishment. Protecting oneself is the main concern. I mean, come on. Anxieties will set in. Certainly not on the surface. He will attempt to appear composed. Still, he'll sense the change on the inside. The impact of a woman's retreat is frequently underappreciated by men like him. They believe they have unbreakable control over their games. However, the puppet master is left with nothing when the puppet cuts the strings. Your lack of speech accomplishes that. The scales are turned. Out of nowhere, he is no longer the dominant figure. Yeah, you totally are. A fire comes to mind. Your text provided the inspiration he needed to keep going, to maintain his self-assurance. He flung all the emojis and "how are you" questions onto his fire. However, you have now ceased. Slowly but surely, the fire goes out. He may send a casual "hey" or a wistful "remember when" to reawaken it. Now I'll tell you the secret. Without your consent, the fire will not burn. You become untouchable the moment you realize it. Keeping quiet isn't merely a strategy, a mirror that is. It removes the filter of your approval, allowing him to view himself as he really is. Plus, He may not be pleased with what he sees. Your undivided attention will reveal his hidden vulnerabilities, the holes in his self-assurance that he has been trying to hide. Sooner or later, he'll realize he's not as unbeatable as he once believed. What about you? You'll realize that his assessment of you was never the bedrock of your value. Keep this in mind. He is not owed to a text message. He is not due to any explanations, reassurances, or closure from you. Let go of what you can't change according to Stoicism. Do not be like your enemy. That is the best revenge, as Marcus Aurelius put it. Quitting texting shows that you are not willing to fall to his level. It's not going to stop you. You're opting for honor rather than desperation, for yourself rather than giving up. Your remaining silent will prove to be your most effective tactic. Because he never anticipated that you would come to terms with your own strength, this is the one thing he was unprepared for. Now, though, you do. You will learn the truth while he sits there fixed on his phone, anticipating an unrealized message. As soon as you decided you weren't going to play, the game was over. You're doing more than only escaping his grasp. You're taking a step towards independence. Let me give you your assignment. Join me in affirming this at this very now. Nobody can use me as a pawn in their game. When I don't say anything, it says more about me than anything else. I write my own tale. Plus, you shouldn't hoard this strength any longer. It would mean the world to me if all my queens would just say it in the comments. Just type it out. I control my quiet. No need to mutter it to yourself in the bathroom. Allow it to echo in all your decisions, in your refusal to text, and in the restoration of your vitality. Let your stillness reverberate with the confidence of a strong woman who is certain in her value, who doesn't need approval from others, but who, by being herself, commands respect. This should serve as your motto, a gentle nudge, and a public proclamation. The first is that, like a thunderclap, the silence hits him hard. Discontinuing your messaging with him will be like ripping the rug out from under his well-planned strategy. It was something he didn't expect to happen. He assumed you would maintain bolstering his ego, playing along, and treating his meager resources as a banquet. Suddenly, though, as if a bolt of lightning had just split the night sky in half, there is complete quiet. The shock value is high. I can't even deal with it. It sheds light on all the things he has been neglecting or failing to appreciate. And now he is experiencing his absence for the very first time. He tries to convince himself it's not a major issue at first. Perhaps you're occupied. Maybe tomorrow you'll send a text. That confidence gap, though, starts to expand as the hours pass and no messages arrive. He had no power over you whatsoever, even though he believed he did. It was made for ease. Where are you? This was the part for which he was unprepared. Think about this. The room is dead silent, and he stands in the middle of it. He can't stop listening for the sound to come back. Instead, it falls short. That's the sensation of your quiet, a weighty emptiness that intensifies as time goes on. There's more to it than that. That's when your aura, vitality, and brilliance fade away. Out of nowhere, he begins to doubt his own power. Maybe you're wondering if he's even paying attention. Could it be because he is oblivious? Please listen to me on this. Nobody likes to be silent. It's only natural to long for things that are no longer readily available. The power dynamic changes when you cut off texting, and he's aware of it, even though he denies it. Whether or not he says it aloud is irrelevant. It revolves around the inquiries that occupy his thoughts. Then why did she cease? Was it too much to ask? Does someone else have my position? According to the dark arts of psychology, one of the best ways to undermine someone's self-assurance is to plant seeds of doubt in their mind. The ultimate uncertainty is your silence. The solution he seeks remains elusive, like an unsolved problem. The focus he believed he could has vanished. The truth has now left him to face it. He was mistaken about how predictable you are. Put yourself in his shoes and see him as a ship's captain, guiding a vessel through unknown seas. His eyesight is clouded by the storm of silence. What knocks him off course is the abrupt change in the tides. For some reason, he felt he was the one drawing the route map. Now, though, he sees that he can't make it without you. The irony is that he didn't appreciate the lighthouse until it went out. This is the bit that he still doesn't get. He is unrelated to your silence. Focus on yourself. The point is to get your own energy back that you gave to someone who didn't value it. The key is to take a step back and allow yourself room to breathe, recover, and rediscover your true self apart from his games. Quietness, as Lao Tzu wisely put it, is a wellspring of power. What you're demonstrating to him right now is that. Power, not the brash sort that cries out for recognition, but the quiet kind that says what's on one's mind. Words fail to express what your silence conveys. This sends the message that you're sick of him defending his behavior and that you're sick of him letting him know that you deserve better. But let's be real, his feelings aren't the only thing at stake here. It's also about how you feel. Even when you're certain that it's the correct choice, it's never simple to separate from someone you care about. From time to time, you may question his value and question whether it's worth sending him one last message. Try not to give in. Silence isn't a sign of weakness. Keep that in mind the next time you want to use your phone. Well said. He really believed he was familiar with you. He fooled himself into thinking he could read your mind and dictate the tempo of your romance. However, the unexpected twist in the plot was your silence. When the puppet breaks the strings, the chessboard flips, and the game finishes, that is the moment. You just decided it wasn't worth it to play anymore. Not because he won. Join me in saying this. He is not playing me to win. Success comes from within. Give that reality a chance to settle in. Remind yourself of your strength with it, because it reveals his inner emptiness. The quiet hits him like a bolt of lightning. You will come to appreciate something lovely as he frantically tries to comprehend what transpired and reclaim the power he believed he possessed. He is not yours to weather the storm, not at all. The strength of quiet isn't in what it takes away. By the time he finally comprehends the depth of your stillness and realizes what he's lost, you'll be too far ahead to care. How it returns value is the key. You are now the one in charge. Second, he sees the game slipping away from him. When a man's game starts to slide, it can be extremely unsettling for him because he relies on control. When you cut off all communication with him, he experiences more than simply quiet. He believed he had control over the dynamic, but now it's falling apart. Everything was set up exactly how he had envisioned it. While you pursue, you patiently wait, and you adhere to his unwritten regulations. Unfortunately, at this point, he is helpless as the pieces begin to fall, slipping through his fingers like sand. Initially, he may not display it. This is unusual for men of his caliber. As a coping mechanism, he will pretend not to care and tell himself that you will return. But as the days pass and his phone still won't budge, cracks start to appear. The reality begins to dawn on him. It was never his. He had imagined he had power. After giving everything freely, you've decided to claim it all again. Imagine him sitting at a poker table, cocky and confident, with what he believes to be a winning hand. His constant bluffing throughout the game kept you on the edge of your seat and questioning your every move. However, you proceed to perform the unexpected thing. You give up. You get up and leave, so he can continue to play with his hollow bravado and no one to challenge him. That's the sensation of being silent. A play that ended the game that he was unaware of. What changed? He is left wondering. Oh no, what went wrong? To determine when you stop playing alone, he goes over every contact and message again. According to the dark arts of psychology, his mind is just like any other human mind. It despises mysteries. Furthermore, his self-assurance is being chipped away by the nagging doubt. Before he believed he had everything under control, but now he knows better. The illusion of control has left him stumbling around in the dark. It is important to him. You may be wondering, will he even perceive it? Please listen to me on this. You won't realize how conspicuous your absence is till someone bases their power on your emotions. This is like when a juggler unexpectedly drops one of their apparatuses. He must scramble to keep the show going after the performance falls flat. Your lack of sound throws him off his stride and makes him unprepared. Envision a tightrope walker who starts out confidently walking the wire, but suddenly realizes that the safety net has been removed halfway through. It's like that when you decide to cut off all communication with him. You were the rock that kept him from falling, the anchor that let him play his games freely and take chances. Now that you're not here, I'm afraid to take any action for fear of falling. Stop wasting time debating the qualities that make a decent man. Listen, Marcus Aurelius admonished, this wisdom is echoed by your quiet. There is no argument, no explanation, and no plea for him to see your value. You're only taking a break from the game to demonstrate to him what you're willing and unable to tolerate. Also, by doing this, you're showing that you're no longer subject to his restrictions. The game starts to elude him, and he starts to freak out. His previously held beliefs about you begin to crumble before his very eyes. Was she interested in me? Has my interpretation of her been incorrect? Is there another person in the photo? These inquiries build into an uncontrollable tempest in his thoughts. He used to think he was the one manipulating you, but now he sees that you've always been able to end things, and he just can't compete with that. Allow me to clarify. Neither manipulation nor vengeance are at play here. Your vitality, serenity, and self-respect are all things that can be recovered. You hoped he'd come to appreciate you after you played by his rules for far too long. Now that you're in charge of making rules, the first one is easy. The odds are never in your favor when you play these games. Image an hourglass in motion. You kept an eye on the sand for weeks, if not months, wondering when he would do something, and whether he would ever repay your efforts. The moment you cease texting, though, you flip that hourglass on its head. Now he finds himself on the other side of the clock, wondering how he let something so precious elude him. Join me in saying this. I refuse to be used as pawn. It is up to me, as the player, to determine the final score. Feel the weight of that reality. He lost the game because he failed to adequately anticipate his abilities. His expectation was that you would be a constant companion, willing to wait and play along. Sitting there and staring at the blank board, though, the truth has finally dawned on him. He was never in it to win it. It was up to you to depart. His games will seem like a distant memory by the time he realizes what he's lost. You'll have progressed to a complete and dazzling life by then. The first thing he feels when you stop texting him is bewilderment. That bewilderment, though, becomes something heavier, something indisputable as the stillness grows. The weight of your value starts to settle on him like a long-awaited epiphany. Your absence is accompanied by more than simply silence, you know. A spotlight, that is. He is unable to evade the reality he has been denying under its intense light. The idea of you was never fleeting. You stabilized his disorder, provided a constant he failed to recognize, and hid his true worth from him, at least up until this moment. He may attempt to brush it off at first, telling himself that you'll return and that the stillness is only temporary. The more time passes, though, the more distinct it is. He lost more than just a text conversation. He was bereaved of a person who saw him, cared for him, and shared with him aspects of her that she wouldn't share with anybody else. It has finally hit him. Even when you distance yourself, the weight of your value tugs at him, filling the space where your light once shone. As the old adage goes, it is only as the sun goes down that its true worth is revealed. And you were the light that warmed a world that he had no idea had grown frigid. Now he must face the reality that he was never deserving of your value, and he is left to fend for himself in the shadow of his own apathy. It was a present from you. This blessing has now evaporated. Just picture this. He enters a space that he once ignored. Everything was kept together by you. The walls were decorated with your care, the air was filled with your laughter, and the floor was steady beneath his feet. That room now feels empty. The room is devoid of color. The atmosphere is thick, and he can feel the floor swaying under his arrogance. The burden of your value feels like that. It's not only something he becomes aware of, there's no way out of it for him. Could you possibly question if he truly feels this way? Now that I'm no longer here, can someone who was so oblivious to my worth finally realize it? It is easy to understand. Yes, because irreplaceable go unmentioned. Rare things go unnoticed. What about you? You're special and unique. Though he might not apologize or make a huge show of contrition right away, he does eventually come to terms with the situation. It sneaks up on him when he's alone and needs you most, in the moments of peace and quiet when your texts were absent. He can't turn a blind eye to your value. With each passing day of your absence, the burden becomes more pressing. Kindness is sometimes misunderstood as a sign of weakness, according to dark psychology, and as a result, it is seldom extended. He foolishly believed he could take advantage of your kindness, sympathy, and focus without ever having to work for it. However, he is now responsible for his own complacency in your absence. It's as if someone were to hold a mirror up to his face, revealing not just all he has lost, but also everything he has overlooked. Consider a crown, a representation of greatness, power, and honor. You carried it off with ease, even though he ignored it. He misses it so much now that you've returned it to him. The value you possess cannot be diminished via neglect, and he has come to this realization. When kept from others, it becomes even more obvious. Sitting in the empty space of your silence, he can't help but wonder how he could have missed something so important. The goal here is not retribution. Striking a balance is key. You have been unfairly benefiting him for quite some time now by giving more than he has asked for and receiving less than he merited. Now that things have leveled out, though, he can't turn a blind eye to the disparity. Your value is no longer a burden on you. He must carry it, and it is heavier than he had anticipated. They claim that our tolerance levels determine what people learn to expect from us. Distancing yourself, not responding to his texts, and paying attention to him all teach him a lesson he will never forget. Your value shouldn't be underestimated. It's not practical, it's an honor. He can no longer lay claim to such privilege. Imagine him attempting to go on, to rectify the gap you created in his life. He could try to divert his attention, immerse himself in his work, or even seek out other people. Things don't seem the same, though, because nothing can ever replace the value you bring to this world. Distinct, one-of-a-kind, and memorable all describe it. Even when the dust settles, he will still feel the weight of it. My value is not a liability. Say it to me. With it, I wear my crown. Permit that reality to drive you. Allow it to serve as a reminder that retreating is about more than just showing strength. A self-respecting person would do this. For the first time, he is faced with the responsibility of carrying out your contributions, and that is when he realizes how valuable you are. You will feel a sense of relief, liberation, and solidity in the truth you have always known as that realization washes over him. You are valuable in more ways than one. He will always remember it. The fourth one, he scrutinizes his own reflection in the mirror and notices the fissures. Something out of the ordinary occurs once you cease texting him. At first, he may try to convince himself that it's insignificant and brush it off. However, the growing stillness becomes unavoidable. Now he's all by himself, not just with you not speaking, but also with himself, the one person he has avoided at all costs. Now that he can't rely on your text for support, he must face his own reflection. Remember that mirror? It is merciless. He portrays himself to the public as an assured and powerful man, but the person he sees isn't like that. On the contrary, it's brimming with holes, imperfections that he's attempted to conceal using charisma, manipulation, and diversions. Your stillness removes all distractions, allowing him to see himself as he truly is. Stop wasting time debating the qualities that make a decent man. Listen, Marcus Aurelius admonished. Allow me to explain. Not at all. For sure, he is aware of it. For the first time ever, it's impossible to avoid. He's been preoccupied with your every move, emotion, and willingness to sacrifice, to the point where he has neglected to reflect on his own behavior. From that mirror, though, he can see all the unresolved issues, broken promises, and games he played, as well as the silence you've left behind. Picture yourself in a dark room, staring at your own reflection as one intense flashlight gradually illuminates the space. You can't get away from this. Every imperfection, flaw, and shadow become excruciatingly obvious. He currently feels like he is away. The things he has been trying to hide from you are shown into relief by your quiet. All the uncertainties, fears, and worries about not measuring up. He finds himself confronted with questions he has never faced previously. Did I err? Was it too much to ask? Why was I so dramatic? Since he is not accustomed to introspection, the solutions do not come easily to him. According to the field of dark psychology, when people are unhappy with themselves, they tend to project their difficulties onto other people or want for approval from others. However, he is alone with himself now that he has your text to distract him. This is a discussion he is ill-prepared to handle. Does he honestly recognize his own shortcomings? Does it matter to him? Whether he wants to admit it or not, the truth is that being silent makes him think about himself. Imagine yourself at the shore of a placid lake, where the slightest wave serves as a constant reminder of everything that has been thrown into the water. A hush falls over his existence as you're not there. The silence compels him to take stock of the disaster he has created. Observe this paradox. He had the delusion that he was in charge for a long time. He was under the impression that he could keep you waiting by feeding you lies and half-truths. But now he sees that the target of his manipulation isn't weak after all. Strongest among us is you. You aren't flawed in the way the mirror portrays you. He possesses them. Plus, he has never had to confront them before without your comforting words to ease the pain. Imagine a man attempting to fix a shattered mirror by arranging the shards in front of him. Bit by bit, he exposes a hidden aspect of himself. No amount of effort on his part will restore perfection to his incomplete reflection. That is the result of your remaining silent, which strips him of the fantasy he has been embracing. The first step towards development, according to Stoicism, is self-awareness. Our opinions about these things, rather than the things themselves, are what annoy us. This is the lesson he never thought he'd have to learn. And it's also the lesson you didn't need to teach. Your silence is a perfect curriculum on its own. No words, no arguments, no explanations. You simply stepped out of the game, and that alone created the most profound impact. Now he's faced with a harsh reality. He cannot replace you. He might try to seek others to fill the void, but no one can bring the same energy, the same presence, the same essence that you once brought into his life. Others may only be faint shadows, unable to compare to the light you once shone on him. He begins to realize that your silence isn't just an absence, it's a declaration. A declaration that you no longer accept what doesn't align with your worth. A declaration that you know your value and don't need to beg for recognition from anyone. And that terrifies him. Not because he lost you, but because he realizes he never truly had you. He only had what you were willing to give. And now, as you hold those things for yourself, he understands that he's lost the most valuable thing he ever had. Picture him sitting alone in a room that was once filled with your laughter and presence. Now, the silence isn't just the absence of sound. It's the presence of a truth he cannot escape. He didn't appreciate you. But here's the most important part. Your silence isn't for him. It's for you. It's a time for you to heal, to regain your strength, to remember that you don't need anyone to complete you. With each passing day, you feel stronger, freer, and more connected to your true self. You're no longer bound by the games, the expectations, or the half-hearted promises. You've stepped out of that cycle and found peace within yourself. And that is true power, the kind of power no one can take away from you. As for him, he will continue to wrestle with the emptiness you've left behind. He may try to come back, to fix things, but you know better now. You've learned that your worth isn't determined by someone else recognizing it. It's in how you protect it. Let him face the consequences of his indifference and arrogance on his own. Let him figure out the lessons you are no longer responsible for teaching. And while he remains stuck in the past, you will keep moving forward, living a full, radiant life unbound by anyone. Because in the end, your silence isn't an ending. It's a beginning to a new chapter where you write your own story. A story that doesn't need validation from anyone but yourself.